We got James Marsters here joining me here for Sports and Hip Hop with DJ Mad Max, Live 365, iHeartRadio. One of the all-time great actors. We know him in Spike and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Brainiac, Smallville, Casa Grande, Abruptio. He's got a lot that he's done over the years. House on Haunted Hill. We'll touch on that. We're in the month of October. I know you're not a big horror guy, but we're gonna get into all your work. And I think you've been well-rounded in the horror genre, playing a vampire, well known, of course. But man, welcome to the show. How's everything going? How you doing, James?
So good, man. Yeah, this morning I found out that my son passed the bar. He graduated law school. He's already got a job and he passed the bar. And I remember when he was born, I was a poor theater actor. I was up in Seattle, and I was working a lot in theater, but they don't really pay you dad money, to do that. And just this crushing realization that I had made a big mistake. You know, I was not in a position to be able to do right by him in any way, shape, or form. And I was just thinking about that this morning, that it's been a long journey. He's the reason that I came down to Los Angeles and gave up on theater. And just a few hours ago, I found out it all paid off. And now I get to tell you about it. So yeah,
Congratulations.
chest is all puffed out. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
happy to hear that. Your hard work is paid off. He's very successful. He's going to be a successful lawyer. And I mean, you mentioned it with being in Seattle, and we could talk about Juilliard and you going to LA and being from California originally. I mean, you were all over the place, Chicago. So why don't we take things from the beginning? Because I heard about your early life a little bit, and I know there were some difficult times there, but how did you eventually get to Juilliard? Because I heard that you got in with the monologue. They eventually kicked you out, but let's get into when you actually got into Juilliard with the monologue.
Yeah, I coming out of high school, I did a 2-year apprenticeship at the Pacific Conservatory of the Performing Arts, or PCPA, in Santa Maria, California, and that was an amazing program where you took classes. Working actors would teach you about speech and movement and acting, stuff like that, and then you would play little tiny roles in really good plays. And I got to watch some of the best West Coast theater actors go from first rehearsal to last performance, and you learn things without even knowing that you're learning them, really. And that was an incredible experience. So by the time I auditioned for Juilliard, I'd already kind of had 2 years of good training in acting, and I think that helped me a lot. And I don't know if my audition was that great, but they had us write an essay, and they said, describe your morning. And I remember writing the essay, like, hurled over in the hallway, everyone's scribbling their essay. I remember reading it back to myself and being like, hey, I'm a pretty good writer. I kind of enjoy reading this. So I think that day I gave a good essay. And I think probably that is as much as any reason that they let me in.
Mm.
And luckily gave me a full scholarship.
Wow.
Otherwise, I would not have been able to afford it.
I heard that you were hanging out with Ving Rhames, Michael Beach, and up in Harlem.
Yes. Yes. I used to cut Michael Beach's hair. We were in
Oh,
the same
wow.
class. Yeah. I didn't do it very well, but he was just like, I have no money for a haircut, so just do what you can, man. Yeah, we were good friends. In fact, I just saw him on a flight a few months ago. He's doing so well. And yeah, he was roommates with Ving up in Harlem. And I remember they invited me over to see the last episode of MASH. For your viewers, that was a very, very popular television show about the Korean War, and went on forever. And the final episode was a big deal. So they had a TV, and I didn't have a TV. So I went up, took the train up to Harlem, and we watched the thing. And it was, for some reason, I guess it started late. For whatever reason, I think it was like midnight by the time I was ready to go home, and I just casually asked them, "So who's going to walk me to the train station?" And Ving just kind of cocked an eyebrow. I was like, "Why can't you walk?" And I was like, "Well, it's Harlem. It's midnight. I'm a white boy. I'm going to get eaten alive out there." And Ving was just like, "Oh man, oh James, okay. Tell you what, we're going to walk behind you about half a block, and I want you to walk around my neighborhood for half an hour, just to see what we're about, okay? And then we'll get you to the train station, and you'll be safe. Don't worry." And I did that, and I walked through the most vibrant, happy place for half an hour. It was infinitely safer than Hell's Kitchen where I live. Hell's Kitchen is an area like, Marvel, Daredevil comes from Hell's Kitchen. It
Yeah,
was an
yeah.
actual place near Times Square. This is back when Times Square was not nice. It was really seedy. And I used to track blood on the sidewalk into my little apartment in Hell's Kitchen. Happened so frequently that it wasn't even a big deal. I was like, oh man, gotta wipe out the blood again. So anyway, I walked around their neighborhood. It was just fabulous. It was just wonderful. Kids out, playing, all people selling stuff, old people out there safe, everyone hanging out together. And I came from a small town in Northern California that was pretty segregated. It's
Mhm.
basically Johannesburg in 1970s. Like there was a place of color, but it was over on the other side of the town. And we didn't really mix. And so I had a lot of learning to do. And Ving is responsible for a good little bit of that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the subway system's no joke.
Wow. Yeah. Well, the subway back then, man, it was pretty rough. I remember the Guardian Angels, which they were like this paramilitary semi-fascist group that were out there in the subways with these red berets, and they were saying that we're going to keep everybody safe, but you better pay attention when we look at you, kind of stuff. And they're like, nobody hired these guys; they're just like
No.
showing up, and they all know karate. It was back in the 80s. New York is fabulous now.
Yeah.
You know, when I went there, when I was living there, they had just kicked out all of the people with mental problems
Hmm.
out of all of the facilities and out onto the streets. And so there were 4 to 12 screaming people on every street corner. I mean, on every intersection in Midtown and in Hell's Kitchen. And it freaked me right out. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. No, it's tough. It's gotten better, but I know the subway system still hasn't improved. That's still, you still
Okay.
see people getting pushed in there, dead bodies on the platform. It's still a thing.
I have to admit something to you. Like, I've been back to film, I've been back to do music or back to do conventions and stuff like that. And it seems like a Disneyland version of the New York that I remember. Like,
Yeah.
so clean, people are friendly, it's amazing. And I have never been down there, man. I've never been down to the subway system.
Don't go.
I get to catch cabs now. I can afford a cab.
Yeah, avoid that at all costs. I'm telling you, whenever I'm back in the city, because I got my start at St. John's and Queens, so I was all around New York. But the subway system, if I could avoid it, I would do the best I could at that time. It's tough,
Oh wow. Yeah, yeah,
crazy.
yeah. There are stories that I'm not going to tell you about my experience and stuff with this, because I was to some extent one of those people that you don't want to ride a car with, but I'm not going to go there. I'm better now.
But you did. I mean, we could fast forward a little bit, then get back to Juilliard. But you did film the subway scene with Buffy, though.
Yeah, and that was a very realistic set in Los Angeles, but it was a really good recreation of a 1970s subway car.
Mhm.
Um, in that it had a bunch of, like metal paneling and those really pretty good sized rivets everywhere, uh, which only was important because we were doing stunts on it. And the woman that played the Slayer that I was fighting was a professional stunt woman. She didn't have any dialogue, so they didn't have to switch out between an actress and the stunt performer. So she was just this multiple black belt, awesome person. And I'm not, like, I'm a green belt. So, like, I always say to stunt coordinators, I say black belt, then I go down to the waist, green belt, and I go down to my ankles. Bullshit, right? Like, if you have me in a close up, I can look like Bruce Lee because that's all acting. If you have me waist up, I can get meat and potatoes done for you real well. If you want me full figure, leaping off buildings or doing triple kicks, go get a professional. So
Mhm.
I am a green belt, a judo green belt, but my footwork is sloppy enough that I was bumping up against the sides of this set, and I was getting shredded, man. I didn't have the long leather coats, so my arms were exposed, and I just kept kind of like being sloppy like I am, and I'd be bumping up against all the rivets, and they're just like, they cut, mop up the blood. And this
Oh.
woman is just laughing at me. She's like, what is wrong with you? Are you just got a death wish? Stop doing that. I'm like, I can't help it. We're going fast, man. Yeah.
You mentioned Bruce Lee because you fought his cousin.
In Fool for Love,
That
actually.
was in the
Yeah,
Fool for
Ming
Love one.
Lee. Yeah, she I believe she still teaches at his dojo. I'm not actually sure if that's true. I suspect it's true, but just because I got to work with her again on Marvel's Runaways a few years ago, and she was just as fast as she ever had been. You know, I'd lost a step or two, I'll be honest, but she was quick. Yeah, when Ming came on the set, all the other stunt performers were like, Ming is coming. Oh, Ming is in. Oh, hello, Ming. You know, like rad respect. And Ming is very diminutive, you know, smaller person. And I remember I was really excited because I finally got to fight with a sword. I came from stage where you got to learn weapons, you got to learn hand to hand, you got to learn, because you don't get a stunt man on stage, so you got to learn how to do that if you want to work. And they kept telling me on Buffy that you don't get a sword, dude. You have teeth. You don't need a sword. We're not going to give you weapons. You have them. But that day we were fighting with swords, and I was really excited. And I'm flourishing around, and I'm like, Ming, we're gonna have a blast, man. I'm pretty good at this. Hey, it's gonna be great. And I flourished just a little too close to her face. Not dangerous, but just a little too close. And she kind of like went, really? You want to play, huh? Okay, let's play. And she walked to this other side of the set, and then just leapt at me and full extension. And this happened in about 3/4 of a second, just like bam, and right under my nose, just like lifted up my head, like, hello, you want to play? And I was like, Ming, okay, wow. She's a really friendly person, and for her, that's play. But that kind of put me on notice, man. Like maybe don't flourish around Ming Lee. Yeah.
But I mean, with your journey, because when we go back to Juilliard, they got it completely wrong when they told you that you didn't know how to act and everything. So did it kind of spark a fire in you to really go out there and get to Chicago, kind of get to being kicked out, and then how you got to Chicago? Because the Goodman Theater, I heard about you having to
Yeah.
perform in the nude for your first performance out there. So how was it just having to prove everyone wrong because they told you that you couldn't act, you were horrible, quit now before they become really bitter? It was really an
Yeah.
inspiring story to hear that. So kind of get to your journey from getting kicked out to Chicago.
I'll be honest, man. That fire didn't rekindle for a little while.
Mhm.
It went out for a little while. I went through a real depression. I almost threw myself off the roof of Juilliard, actually,
Wow.
because acting was the only thing that kept me together in my childhood, and that I'd just been told that there was no future for me there. And I'm like, I'm gonna go insane. So I just started bartending and waiting tables in New York for about 2 years. And then my girlfriend, who later became my wife, said she just gotten out of college. She went to college for acting too. She said, you know what? Chicago's where it's happening. New York is pretty dead right now. So many theaters have lost their space because all the rent went up so fast in the 80s that a lot of places closed in New York. She said in Chicago, it is bubbling, man. It's all over the place. All of the good writers are all producing out of Chicago right now, not New York. So I'm going, and if you want to join me, cool. If you don't, bye. You know. And so I followed the woman, and I'm so grateful that I did because I hadn't acted in a couple of years, and we hit Chicago, and it was true. There was a theater every few blocks. There's a little storefront theater organization, and I happened into one that had a really good director who cast me in a play called Lysistrata 2411. It's a Greek comedy about women that get sick of men making war, and they say, we're not going to sleep with you until you stop making war. And the guys are all like, you, man. And then pretty soon they change their mind, you know. And the thing is we performed it with phalluses. Like all Greek comedy is designed for all the men to have a big old phallus. I mean, I don't know who's listening. Do you know what you guys know what a phallus is? It's like a big dildo. Okay. Okay. And this is classic Greek comedy, man. This is how you do it. But nobody has the guts to do it like that. But this director's like, we're doing it with the phallus, man. Get ready. And we're like, kick ass, whatever, you know. And we found that if you wear that phallus, then doing Greek comedy is like shooting fish in a barrel. You cannot go wrong. Every joke just lands slam, and it's just house laughs the whole time. We had a big hit with it, and then he recommended me when they needed someone to replace an actor at the Goodman, which was the biggest theater in the town. They were rearranging their cast, and they needed a new young romantic character, and they pulled me up. And then after working at the Goodman, I was kind of like, everyone was willing to take a look at me, and I was off to the races. Yeah.
And you also did a French Revolution play. I heard about that. When did you start your own company? Because you were paying your own theater. You had your own theater programs going on, paying actors $18 per performance. So when did that happen?
Um, my this woman that had become my wife, we had been cast in a Brian Friel play called Lovers, which is about two young people in a boat. The first act is them in a boat, and then the next act you find out that they've died, and everyone talks about how sad they are that they died. Basically, it's a really good play, and we were the young lovers, and it wasn't directed well. It was like really, really. I hope no one's listening that directed that show, but anyway, it wasn't okay. I've directed plays that were horrible, that happened to be horrible, and my wife and I, my then wife and I, we were going home and directing ourselves. We were just like, we're not getting direct. This is going to be horrible. So we've got to go rehearse ourselves and try to save this thing. And we completely changed what we were doing, and it worked great. She gave me great notes. I gave her great notes, and it worked. And we got great reviews. And I just remember saying, we could screw it up as well as these people. We should start a theater company. And we did. And we got a great space right across the street from Steppenwolf, which was the big flagship theater. I think the best theater in America is Steppenwolf. Certainly was back then. They would go to Broadway and just take it over. They were like Nirvana coming on the scene. When Steppenwolf came to New York, it was like boom, rock and roll, and all the other like bands are like, oh, we can't. They're not going to buy the bullshit anymore, like because Nirvana is playing now, and that was Steppenwolf. They would just bring it. Put everyone to shame. And so we got a place right across the street for them for a pretty cheap price because it was summertime. And we just leapt at it. And we realized once we got in there why it was so cheap. In the summer, it was like 130 degrees in there. And so we like went without food for a week and bought an air conditioner. And we thought that would fix it, but it was just like a little window. We needed an industrial sized air conditioner. It wasn't a big theater, but what we bought, I didn't know anything. It didn't do anything, man. It did nothing. And one of the actresses actually fainted on stage.
Wow.
And luckily, there were people from Steppenwolf happened to be there, and they helped call an ambulance and get the Steppenwolf doctor in there and check her out, and it was all okay. And luckily, the actress was a friend of ours and didn't sue us. And we got horrible reviews because I directed it. It was my first time directing, and it was terrible. It was just terrible. It was just an absolute disaster from start to finish. I'm lucky I'm not in jail and no one died. And so when we produced our next play, we made this wonderful new adjustment. I was not going to direct this one, and we got another guy to direct it, and we got a hit out of that. And we were off to the races.
Amazing. Have you thought about maybe doing some more theater performances as far as starting your own? Have you thought about opening up your own company?
I have. My plan when I came down to Los Angeles was I was going to try to I just had one child, and I was going to try to make enough money for his college and raising him, and maybe a little retirement savings for us both, and then get out and go back and do theater. We ended up getting divorced, and I ended up starting to raise my niece as my daughter, who I have done, and needed a nanny for that, and my expenses just went through the roof. And I have not been able to afford to go back and do theater, not regularly. And now my kids are grown; they're almost out of college, both of them, and that question is coming into my mind. But it's really a second very expensive divorce is really making me look at my retirement savings. I'll be honest. I'm like, oh wow, I might want to not go back to theater quite yet. So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to finally be able to afford to do theater, and I'm not going to be able to. I'm going to be so old that I won't be able to remember the lines. I'm ready to come back to you guys. You know, I'm like, yeah, old man, stand down. Yeah, who knows? I would love to, though. I would absolutely love to. Um,
From
yeah, I've
Chicago,
done
what took you
different
to
stuff
Seattle?
on and off. What's that? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, continue. What were you going to say?
No, I've done different productions on and off. I like to work with the LA Theater Works, who do plays for radio, well, streaming. So we perform them for a live audience and then stream that. I've done plays. God, the Blank Theater, done a few good plays with them. A really great play called The Why, about school shootings, written by a high school student. That was hilarious and horrifying and absolutely wonderful play. I think I did a Macbeth. I did a two-hander Macbeth that I directed, a short play that just focuses on Macbeth and Lady Macbeth with some connective narrative tissue that kind of fills in the blanks. I like to keep my fingers in it as much as I can, but I can't really commit to like a 3 to 6 month window to do a full run of a full play.
I heard that one of your biggest regrets was you not getting to take the Hamlet role.
Yeah, man, that's one of those roles that unless you get to it, it goes by you pretty quick, because Hamlet is a play about someone who is just old enough. He starts to see the world for what it is, which is a really imperfect play. So in the beginning of Hamlet, he's 18 years old. Now with television and computers and mass media, people start waking up around 14 to this pretty horrifying fact that the world is really messed up, really. And Hamlet wakes up to it when he discovers that his father was murdered by his uncle, and his whole kingdom that he's going to inherit is just infighting and backstabbing, and it's just foobar from top to bottom. And he's got to decide: am I going to try to get in there and make it better, or am I just going to give up? And there's a great speech, the to be or not to be speech, in that is him basically. It's a teenager turning to the audience and saying, "Hey guys, I'm thinking of killing myself, man. I need help. Like, you guys are out there, you're older. Like, why didn't you do it? Why don't you do it right now? Why do any of us keep going? I don't get it." And when an 18-year-old is asking you that question, it's a very profound question. But if you have a 35 to 45-year-old actor playing Hamlet, and this middle-aged guy acting, "I'm thinking of killing myself. Anyone want to help me out?" You're like, shut up. No one wants to hear that. So I think it's really important to have someone in that role who's credibly 18.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not. So there you go.
Yeah, no, I understand. It was definitely tough, but hey, you got some iconic roles under your belt, which we're going to get into. So you get to Chicago, got the Newman Theater, we got everything there with Goodman. How do you get to Seattle from there?
So we started producing in Chicago theater, and we were getting pretty well known. And it was me and my wife and our scenic designer that were the theater company. And we had other people that were helping us, but that was the kind of the core. And it was time to incorporate, like get a lawyer, get articles of incorporation, get non-for-profit status, find a permanent space, and really kind of put in roots in Chicago. And at that point, I started imagining dying in Chicago and being 80 years old when it's 40 degrees below zero outside. And I'm just like, I don't know if this is where I want to land in life. I'll be honest, man. And at that point, Seattle had really started bubbling up, and a lot of really good playwrights were exporting their work. Like, if you pay attention to theater, you see like a play hit in one area, and like, where was the first production? And if you start paying attention, then oh, a lot of the plays that are really hitting in America right now are coming from Seattle. Actually, a lot of good writing is happening there, and they know how to foment that. So the three of us took a trip to Seattle and found an incredibly vibrant art scene, not just theater, but sculpture, dance, painting, everything was just blowing up. And this is in the early 90s, I guess. And really affordable, You know, it was really possible to think about getting a theater space and an apartment at the same time, and we decided to move and pick up our skirts and drive to Seattle, and put down our roots there, which we did.
Yeah. Then you take that
Yeah,
risk to go back to California. You get that audition right in time for Buffy. Big.
man,
It's life
that
changing.
yeah, that's just blind luck, man. You know, I had all the best intentions when I moved down to Los Angeles because I really just want to be a good dad. Having been down here for 20 years, I now realize what a long shot that was. That was never going to work. I was never going to make dad money, even down here. The odds against it were just stacked. And no matter how good you think you are, there are thousands of people who are just as good down here, and we're all fighting for a very limited amount of work. Um, I was really lucky. I had a friend who, from high school, we did high school, we did theater together back when we were very young, and he had become a pretty successful casting director. And I called him up in Seattle and asked him if he'd help me get an agent. And he just went, "Oh, for you? Yeah." Because we knew each other in New York too. We kind of kept in touch, and he knew where I was working and stuff. And he always thought that I was, not a bad actor. So he helped me get an agent, and that put me toward the front of the line. There are millions of people down here in Los Angeles just trying to get the agent, just trying to get to that step, and then you once you get the agent, then you start to hopefully get auditions and you're off to the races. But there's just like this ocean of people trying to get in and be agents, and so I skipped that huge, massive line and got an agent when I came down, and that was incredibly fortunate. And then I just happened to be. I think what happened was that on the Buffy thing, they were looking for someone to play Spike. I guess they were looking for months, and they hadn't found anybody. And they were auditioning a bunch of like name actors and people who had a lot of experience, and they hadn't found what they were looking for. And they were 3 days away from filming, and their back was against the wall. And they must have told the casting directors, like, scrape the bottom of the barrel, like, send us everybody. We got to find someone now. And they scraped the bottom of the barrel, and they found me. Because I only had two. I guess three. I'd filmed 3 roles for television up in Seattle, so I had stuff on a reel to show them, and it was pretty good, and that got me the audition. Um, but yeah, it was just this confluence of little luck, and it got me in the door. And yeah, but that's luck, man.
Yeah.
Like if you choose the performing arts, the deal is poverty. And if you're talented and hardworking, and if you have experience, that'll get you into the casino. That's your ticket into the casino. And you'll go to the casino, the proverbial casino, right? And there'll be a million people outside the casino who are trying to get in, and you're going to waltz right in the front door, and you're going to feel so privileged to do that. And then the doors open, and there's tens of thousands of people in there that are just as talented, just as hardworking, and just as experienced as you. And one person's going to hit triple cherries every night and be carried out on the backs of everyone else in cheers and have money bags. And you're going to go home, and you can come back next day, and you can come back for the rest of your life. But those are the odds, man. And I happen to hit triple cherries. That's all that is.
Well, School Hard, I'll tell you what, it really set the precedent of what you were going to be doing on this show right away. I mean, from just your emergence into the school, the lines there, it was crazy just watching your first performance, because I remember when you first fought with Buffy and then the mother hits you with the axe. Oh,
Yeah, man. I was so arrogant. I was again. This is luck because coming from theater, my acting was so big. I was so theatrical. And if it had been any other kind of character, it would have looked stupid. But because it was this over the top punk rock vampire, it could withstand the overacting that I initially gave it. Um, and the other thing is I had been newly divorced. I had a girlfriend, and the sex was so good, dude. Oh my God. And I just felt like that. I felt like that I'm the man. I just felt very potent at that time, and I took all of that into the camera. Yeah, if that role had been just a normal human being, they probably would have killed me off after a few episodes because I hadn't really learned how to act for camera yet.
Yeah, yeah, you could tell just especially with the weapons when you're like they make me feel manly and all that. You could tell that you were really going with the arrogance. You could tell.
Yeah, because like I didn't realize yet that all of the tools that I had picked up to learn how to act for stage didn't apply to film. I didn't realize yet that it was an entirely different toolbox. So I was of the opinion that I'm the actor. You guys are pretending. Like I've been doing this since I was 10 years old. I've done 100 plays, man, half of those professionally. I'm gonna wipe the floor with all of you. You are my meat. You started doing this 2 years ago. Get just watch and learn, baby. Not knowing that I hadn't even gone to school yet. I hadn't even started to learn how to act for,
Uh-huh.
but it worked. It worked. The arrogance worked. Yeah.
Yeah. How was it the first day on set, especially with the makeup?
I remember the first time they put the makeup on was not the first day, but it was in the first week. And I remember they put it on me and I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought I'd never looked cooler in my life. I was just like that this is bad ass. And I called my girlfriend, this new girlfriend. I was like, you got to come down to set and check me out, man. She gets down to set and she's like, you're disgusting. Keep away from me, foul beast. I was like, you are wrong, man. I look awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, there was no way because I did hear that you would, if it was up to you, that you would have killed Spike off within the first two episodes. Nah, you needed more screen time, and even more than you got. Because I know what happens at the end of the season two. We've seen what happens, but I mean, with the show's themes, because when you look at it, with the episode "Lie to Me," where the kid's dying a brain tumor, there's a lot of themes in this show that we're going to go over that really stand for something else, and they relate to what people are going through in life, and you were able to
Yeah.
weave that into like monsters and all this crazy stuff, vampires. But with Buffy, I think you really needed more screen time because the one episode in season three, I know I heard you explained it before with because they brought the character Faith on. They needed you more in season three. What was the deal with that? Why didn't they didn't bring you back more for season three except for that one episode?
Well, this is the reason that I would have killed me off is that Buffy actually, this is weird. Actually, Buffy is a lot like Hamlet.
Mhm.
It's the same theme. It's about someone who is seeing the world for what it is. In Buffy, it's a fantastical thing. So you're waking up to the fact that there are vampires in the world. But the vampires and all the demons and stuff, those are just metaphors, fantasy metaphors for all the horrors of the real world. And that's kind of why the show lands like it does. And so those things are meant to be overcome. Like you're not supposed to feel for those demons and vampires. They're supposed to be horrible people that you find a way to beat. And that's the message. Hamlet doesn't do the sword fight, and the other guy's so cool. Hamlet's like, oh, I don't want to fight you. Let's kiss. Like, no, Hamlet goes and kills the dude, happy ending. So the thing that I love about Buffy is that Hamlet has a great theme, but then the target audience for Hamlet are people that have already gotten over that Rubicon. They're in their 30s and they've already come to a way to deal with the world. Buffy took the same theme and gave it to people in high school who are making that choice at that time. And I think it was so well produced that it's kind of good for any age group. It's good for me because I gotta remember not to give up. At my age, it's like, how do you get out of bed in the morning? That's kind of the question, but it's the same question. How do you keep going? And I think Buffy gives a lot to that. So I think that Spike was not designed for the audience to go, oh, we want more of that. I think he was supposed to be horrifying and offensive and very quickly overcome. And that's not how the audience perceived the way I was doing it. And at that point, I become a detriment. I was endangering the theme of the whole thing. And I think that the writers on Buffy were way more brave and way more creative than I would have been. I'd have just killed me off. I can't afford this guy around. I'm going to kill him off before he gets even more popular. That's why I would have done it in the first couple episodes. Because if I wait till 5 or 10 episodes, he's going to be too popular to kill. So get him out now. So I'm glad I wasn't producing that show. Yeah.
Even the episode with the judge, I always like when you tell Angel, look over your shoulder and the judge is there. That was a great one.
I was in heaven, dude. I was in heaven. There's certain roles that take me a few days to kind of learn how to drive that car, so to speak. Where's the clutch? What's the turning radius? How do you get this thing around corners? And then you're flying, Spike wasn't like that. Spike, I just got in that character and I was like, oh, I know this one. I know how to fly this one. I can drive this one like right away. And that never stopped. Like between the words action and cut, I was in heaven the entire time. But so they found a way to integrate me for season 2, and they probably thought after season 2, like, we got away with that one, like we got all the heat, and people were excited about that, but we're not going to go back to that. Like that can ruin the show. So after season 2, there were no plans to have me back, and then they had me back for one episode just because popular character. They dropped me in for one episode in season 3, but they might have done that in season 4 and 5, but that was it. But then what happened is they spun off Angel for season 4. In season 4, Angel went off to his own show, and they took Cordelia onto the new show. And Cordelia was the character to tell Buffy, you're stupid, we're all going to die. Everybody else was like, hey, Buffy, what do you think, Buffy? Everyone get behind Buffy. Hey, Buffy, wait for Buffy. But Cordelia was like, Buffy, you look stupid. Your hair sucks, and they needed that kind of character. And I think it was Sarah, actually, that suggested that Spike could fill that role. And so they signed me to become a cast regular just in season 4. And then that's why you had the smoking blanket all the time.
Oh, yeah.
They had to find a way to get me in the room so I could tell Buffy that she was stupid. But it's in the daytime. And how do you integrate a vampire in with this normal cast of human beings? And he's always going to be on fire trying to get in the room. So that worked for about 3 or 4 episodes, and they were like, we got to drop it. Like, we can't keep doing this. And at that point, I really thought they're going to kill me off. They're like, I can't get in the room to do my job. And I really thought, well, I'm done. I'm toast.
Yeah.
But they figured it out.
They did figure it out. You also had a chance with the Gem of Amora there, and we know what happened with that. With that fight scene. I love that fight scene when you let Parker take a poke, eh?
I kicked Angel's ass on his own show. How many shows have the balls to do that? I just incredible.
Crazy, unbelievable. But I mean, one thing that I really loved was the chemistry between you and Joyce, because that was when you see that in season 2, and then just the relationship just go on from there. And then season 5, you see that they were close. She accepted you for who you were, your character for who he was.
Yeah, I think that's the first time you started to see William underneath the mask.
Yeah.
And that was something that I didn't think about. I think it was a little bit in the script, but I really leaned into this idea that in a strange way, Spike feels safe with Joyce in a way that he doesn't feel anywhere else. And I didn't really think about it too much because it seemed to make the marshmallow line funnier the more vulnerable I was with her, and I just kind of leaned into it. But back then, I was of the opinion that before Spike was a vampire, he was a badass punk rocker. Like, I couldn't imagine him in any other way. And again, the writers had something more interesting in mind, and I think it might have been the relationship with Joyce that they might have seen a little something that they could use. Like, oh, he seems very vulnerable there. He feels like maybe he's found a mother figure or something. I wonder what's up with that. And then they start to do their magic, and we find out that William was actually this poet that was a horrible poet and couldn't get laid,
William the Bloody.
Yeah, the bloody horrible poet.
How was it acting in silence in that episode? Because that in season 4, that's one of the all-time greats.
I agree. That was a lot harder than we thought. We were all thinking, when you're doing 24 episodes a year and you work up to 20 hours a day, and you're just trying to get all the lines memorized for the next day. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. And so we get the script and there's almost no dialogue at all. We're like, oh my God, reprieve, you know? And then we get into filming it and we quickly discover that all of the information that you usually would give the audience to tell the story in a line, now you have to give it just visually. And so the direction we were getting was like, you got to look at the other character, look to the side worried, realize a thought, come back to the prop, realizes that's how you're going to get what you need out of the character. You need to form a plan when you're looking at the prop, and then carry that plan to your next look at the character. And it's just like, wow, okay, you know, that's a whole different level of specificity. And then to do all of that and make it look effortless, make it look like it's happening for the first time. Like it's one thing. I was used to that kind of thing because that's more or less how you do stage rehearsal, that kind of specificity. Like when you see a stage play, every single moment, every gesture, every movement has been carefully planned out well in advance, and it has the appearance of the first time, but it ain't the first time. In film, usually what you're doing is you're trying to fool yourself into doing something that you're not aware of, so that the camera can actually document something that's really happening for the first time. And the camera is not really satisfied with anything less, actually. The thing is that I quickly realized, like I'm used to having 4 weeks of rehearsal to get all of the specificity so that I can make it appear like it's effortless and it's the first time. In this circumstance where you're getting the note and then you roll, and the worry that I had is this: I'm going to be able to do all the notes, but it's all going to look cheesy because I'm not going to make it look effortless and like the first time. It's going to look acty, you know. So that was a lot. Yeah. But it was a blast. But it was a lot. Yeah.
Groundbreaking show. Season 5 is when things really take the turns there, because that's when you fall in love with Buffy. And to me, in my opinion, that this guy, Spike gets screwed, because I mean, in my opinion, I think he was the best one for Buffy. I know there's some controversy there in season 6, and I did hear about your experience. We'll touch on that a little bit, but to me, I mean, this was the best guy, I think. I get that he was evil, but he had the chip in his head. There were so many things there, but because I remember I read a lot of the fan things online. They say there are times on that show when you really feel for Spike, because it's just like this guy's doing the most to rejuvenate himself. He goes and gets his soul back, and then it's just like she keeps pushing him over and playing games with him.
Yeah. You know, we're skipping ahead, but my favorite line of the show is the very end where she says, "I love you," and he says, "No, you don't, but thanks for saying it." And I remember when we got done with that scene, I thought, you know what? I think that there's hope for Spike now. I think that he's finally redeemable, because he's actually aware, like he's got a soul now, and he is aware, he's looking back at what he's been doing, which is killing a lot of innocent people. And if you really take it, you know, like, sometimes it's played for humor on Buffy, sometimes it's, you know, played for drama. What I think there is hope that he is redeemable. Like I was like, okay, you know what's going to happen is that he sees himself clearly, so he's going to go away from Sunnydale. He's going to grow up. He's going to figure out what to do with his soul of his. And once he thinks he deserves her, he's coming back for her. And they're going to end up together. They're going to get married. I know it. And then I read the comic books, which are written by some of the same writers as the show, and they get married.
Yeah.
And then they start bickering like married couples do. But that we're the couple. I'm sorry. Suck it, Angel. She's mine.
Yeah. I did see that. And I mean, it's a shame that they didn't get to really extend it. I mean, we'll get into that a little bit, but I mean, the lines that really, when we look at everything that it really shaped into be, where you two, I think you were perfect together, was just when you see him, I made a promise to a lady, when he tries to save her sister on the tower there. And then when he comes back with the monologues, with the cross scene was a big rejuvenation scene for me. But a lot of them, I mean, we hear when she accuses him of going out and getting with other women, when he comes back with his soul, and he was like, you basically tell her that you're the only one that means anything to me, you know. And then it's still playing games.
Yeah, and how he was with her sister, you know, with Dawn, you know, like you can see how much he loves her. Sorry, I was getting a call. I should have.
Oh, it's all good.
They're asking for money for the election is nigh, so there are a lot of people want to talk. Yeah, I think that you can see how much that Spike loves Buffy by how considerate he is toward her younger sister.
Hmm.
Um, uh, 'Cause that you wouldn't think he would spend a moment with that. You're like, I can't eat you, get away from me. But he actually is like a big brother to her. In fact, it was a joke. Like we'd get a new director on the set, and like Xander would be bleeding out in Buffy's house, you know, and all of the cast are over him, and they're sweating and worrying and gnashing of teeth, and we're blocking the scene, and I'm just like over in the corner looking bored. I remember, and the director comes up to me and goes, James, you have to go. Xander is a series regular. You're a series regular. You have to go over there and care. You have, and I'm like, no, I don't care. I don't care at all. He said, what? He goes, no, all of them. They could die tonight. I care for Buffy. I care for the mom because his mom's Buffy's mom. I care about sister because he's Buffy's sister. But otherwise, they could die. I don't care at all. Check with your boss. Yeah. But yeah, I I have to admit that the entire time, from the very beginning, I was cheating. Um, I knew what the theme was. It was explained to me that you were just a metaphor for the challenges of adolescence, and you're meant to be overcome and killed. Um, but I was poor, and I was a father, and they told me that I was going to get 10 episodes if it went really well, and I was going to get 5 episodes if it didn't go so well. And I wanted 10. They were paying me more than I'd ever been paid in my life. And we were actually afforded to get health care for the first time. And so I kind of played it like Spike had a soul from the very beginning. I hate to
Yeah.
tell you, but I mean, I just, they said, you know, you are a soulless vampire who cares about nobody and nothing. And that's what you are. And I was like, you got it. And they turned their back, and I was like, heck with that. Like, if I play it that way, they are going to kill me off. Um, I want I want the audience to identify with me. I want the audience to I want to find the love. You know, like in art, love, I believe, is the gold in the mountain. It's if you can find the love, you'll find the way to connect with the audience. And it doesn't have to be syrupy love. It could be love betrayed, it could be love frustrated, but love's got to be in there somewhere. And in the beginning, it was the love of Drusilla that I leaned into. And on the page, Spike is not that nice to her. And I just always turned that on his head. I always found a way to get him to be much more supportive of her than it seemed to be just from the scripts. Um, I was poor. Sorry. Like,
You had to do what you had to do.
I'm not, I don't want you to kill me. I want the audience to really like this character. So I'm going to find the love somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially because you
And if
mentioned
I would have
James.
caught an actor doing that to me, who had lied to me like that, who had told me, yes, sir, I'm going to play it like you want me to, and then completely did the opposite thing, you're dead. You are dead. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
I think because you mentioned the soul thing, playing it from a soul perspective since the beginning, I think you really see that when Buffy's dead at the end of season 5, and it's just you see him fall down and he's crying. But a big scene was when she comes back from the dead and when she's walking down the stairs. I've read comments online; they're like, "Yeah, I don't buy that this guy didn't have a soul."
Yeah, yeah. And I forced them to have to try to explain that, and try to grapple with that and admit that when someone becomes a vampire, the soul is not completely eradicated. It's sidelined, it's stepped on, it's caged, but it's still there. And with Spike, it was peeking out from behind the door, and sometimes right out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I and I mean, Buffy never wanted to go full Anne Rice. It never wanted to be like, oh, I feel for these vampires. Oh, these poor vampires. They didn't really want to go all the way that way, but they kind of moved into a grayer area where even villains are not fully bad, and I think that's kind of a good thing. Um, I think that evil is when I hurt someone for a reason other than defense. Like if I'm defending myself, or if I'm defending my children or my family, then I can cause suffering, and it's okay. But if I do it for any other reason, I think that that's evil. And I think that we hurt each other on earth. We human beings, we do it out of greed, out of selfishness, out of blindness. We do little acts of evil probably every day. And I've been a villain. I've hurt people for no good reason. And I think that heroism is when I help somebody when it costs me something, when I have to sacrifice something. And I've experienced most of this in parenthood, because that's the sacrifice. Are you dad?
No, no, not yet.
Okay, then you'll okay. If you ever do become a dad, you'll find out. There's a
Yeah.
lot of sacrifice in that one, and
Uh,
and it's worth it. Oh my God, I'm so lucky to be a dad, but it's worth it. And so I've been a hero and I've been a villain, and I think that's true of everybody. I don't think everybody's all one completely,
mm,
or very few people. And my favorite writers kind of approach it that way. Like I think that the best writer ever was Shakespeare, and he I think only really had two villains. All of his plays, he wrote a lot of plays. He was like the Beatles. He wrote so many plays, I don't even believe he wrote them all. And I think in all of those, there was only Iago in Othello, and maybe Sebastian in The Tempest that were completely evil. The rest are just human beings who are sometimes hurting each other for one reason or another.
mm.
Yeah. And so they were maybe pulled partially by Spike to re-examine how they were going to think of their villains, and maybe do them in a more in a way that Shakespeare would have done it, or other writers would have done it, where they're not fully evil, but they're doing evil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's with because the switch over to networks, we always read online that this show was supposed to end with Buffy dying. I did read that. Is that true? And just how was the change from being with Warner then to UPN?
Oh, no. Are you having any connectivity issues?
Oh
I
yeah,
don't want
there
to
was
mess
it
up
kind of
your.
like froze up for like a second. Can you hear me
Do you want
now?
me to move closer to my router?
Oh, if you, I can hear you. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
good. Cool. Yeah, I can hear you well enough. Yeah, yeah. As long as you're getting what you need.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
so the show was never going to be canceled. There was a lot of people watching it. In fact, they threw so much money at Sarah trying to get her to do more than 7 years. They threw a mountain of cash on, please do 8, 9 years, please, Sarah. And Sarah, they worked her so hard, man. Like if anyone else but Sarah Gellar had been Buffy, this thing would have collapsed under its own weight, because we were really working 18 to 20-hour days every day. Like most TV shows go 12, and because you have to pay the crew double after 12, they don't go a minute over 12 hours. Buffy had the money, and we went 16, 18 all the time. We went up to 20 quite often, and she was in almost every scene. And she used to do this thing where she would get released, she'd go back and take her makeup off and go and then come back and say goodbye to the producers, just so they could see what they were doing to her, because she just looked just black eye. Her makeup artist is amazing, but when you work 20-hour days for 9 months out of the year, you get tired and you look tired. And 7 years came up, and she was throwing all this money. She's like, guys, I am marrying Freddie Prinze Jr., and we are going to live happily ever after now. I have done my time. Goodbye. I was like, honey, you deserve it, because she was always on time. She always had a good attitude. She always knew her lines. She was a consummate professional. She always had a chipper kind of way about her, that I didn't even have that. I only worked about a quarter of the scenes, and I was toast. So yeah, they weren't gonna. No one was thinking about canceling Buffy, but apparently the original contract with Warner Brothers was a 5-year contract. Most series it's a 7-year contract, and they have everyone locked in for 7 years. But with Buffy, Warner Brothers only had it for 5. So after 5 years, the producers of Buffy were like, "We want a lot more money. Like we want a whole lot more money this thing's a hit. And Warner Brothers wanted to give them a little more money, but not a lot. And so the bidding began, and Paramount outbid them. And so Buffy jumped networks without being canceled, which is the first time it had ever happened. Um, uh, yeah. And all that it affected me was that Paramount just gave us these massive trailers, these palatial trailers. I was like, this is ridiculous, guys. I'm not even going to be able to hear the knock of the production assistant calling me to set. I'm going to be in the back of this. This is bigger than my apartment. You know, like guys, it's ridiculous, man. Just give me a little trailer. But yeah, that's what happened with that. That's why we jumped networks.
Once more with feeling. I know that was that's a big episode from that season, and then you have your own, because I wanted this is how we're going to connect Ghost of the Robot. So how are you juggling being a musician and an actor? When did the musician thing really come into play for you? You got I'm gonna plug the new album for you, Tim, man. Go check out the new album, available on all platforms now. Go download it. But yeah, get into how you were juggling that and when the musician thing came together.
Yeah, you know, I had been playing guitar. I was playing clubs when I was in high school. It's ridiculous, man. I had this blonde afro, and I would only play James Taylor, but I was pretty good at it. And so I was at 13 years old. I was like getting into bars and stuff, and I thought I had arrived. But I decided to go to school for acting rather than music. Um, and so my guitar just became a personal thing, and I would play, you know, never stopped playing, but I stopped playing publicly, or certainly not trying to sell tickets for it. But then when I got on Buffy, you know, interviewers will often ask you, do you play any musical instruments? And I would say, yeah, I used to be in a band in high school, and I played in clubs by myself and stuff. And someone read that interview, and the people at 14 Below, which was a really good little club in Santa Monica that's not there anymore, um, they must have thought, like, it doesn't matter if this guy's any good. He's on television, so if we put him on stage, we'll sell a lot of tickets. Let's just put him up. And so they did. And I wasn't very good. And they sold out, and it was just like standing room only and a big crowd outside, and they wanted me back, and they wanted me back. And slowly other clubs started inviting me around, and slowly I was getting a little bit better. But I remember in the beginning of this process, I was playing at one of the bigger clubs off the strip. What's the name of that club? Anyway, and I knew that I wasn't very good yet, and it was a big house. It was I don't know, maybe 750 people were there, and it was sold out and everything. And I'm backstage, and they come running back, and they say, "Oh, you're going to be so excited! Pink is in the house. She's so excited to see you." And I'm like, "Oh no, no, no! I'm going to break her heart. She knows how to do this. Oh God, I'm going to embarrass myself in front of Pink." And sure enough, by the time I finished, Pink was nowhere to be seen. She left, man. She was out of there.
Wow.
I was relieved. I didn't want to face her. Jesus. Um, but this process continued, and I was getting a little bit better and a little bit better, and I was rehearsing a lot. And I finally met this teenager that had moved to Los Angeles to sell an album that he had recorded in Sacramento. That was phenomenally good. He was in a band called Power Animal that was getting radio play up north in Northern California, and he wanted to start a new band. And he heard me playing in my apartment one morning. He brought his guitar over, and we started talking and playing music together, and decided to form a band that was Ghost of the Robot. And he said, if you want your own rhythm section in rock and roll, that's the drums and the bass. If you want your own rhythm section, I get it, but I got some really good guys that I've been working with before. You might want to hear them too. And I was like, well, let's hear them. Where are they? And he goes, well, right now this weekend they're in New York City playing at Lincoln Center. They're playing jazz, but they'll be back in a week, and then we can see them. I'm like, how old are they? 16 to 17 years old. Yeah, let's go. Let's talk to those two guys. Yeah. And so we had this rhythm section that would bubble because they knew jazz, but they hit so hard because they were teenagers. And that combination was just really, really potent. And after 2 weeks, we got together, we rehearsed some songs, we went into the studio, cut an album, got a really quick, dirty rock and roll album, just smashed through it, and then toured that God, toured that all through Europe, all through America. I think we went to Australia too. Did a couple European tours on that album. And now, we're still together. We're on our seventh album. Yeah.
Congratulations. Yeah, I know Tin Man's a new one. I gave you the plug there. You got to go check that out.
Yeah, that's a good dirty album too. We went back to our roots and just to stop playing with Pro Tools so much and just went in there and played as a band. Like if you watch a documentary on the Beatles, what you'll notice is that they're all in one room playing together and they're all mic'd properly, but they're not being too careful about it. They know what they're doing and they just play as a band, and that's what you hear. And we decided, we know how to play music. Let's go back to that and stop. Well, let's just turn this knob a little bit more, and let's add this instrument later on and all of that stuff. And let's just get back. So yeah. So anyway, when the musical came along, I was comfortable singing. And Tony Head was comfortable singing because he was cutting his own albums at that time. He did freaking Frankenfurter in London, for Rocky Horror Picture Show. So he knew what he was doing. The rest of the cast, very rightly, were terrified. They were like, I don't want to sing. You don't make me do something that I'm not trained to do in front of millions of people. You're going to ruin my career. Like, you signed me to be a dramatic / comedic actor. And that's what I do. Don't make me do something else. I think Sarah actually asked if she could juggle live chainsaws rather than have to sing. Like, that would be safer for my career. I was okay singing. I just thought the songs sucked. I'm a punk rocker, man, and the problem is that Joss, he dropped this cassette on us of him singing the songs, and he was just at this piano plunking away at a piano singing the song, and he's not a great singer, man. I'm sorry, Joss Whedon, singing, and he didn't serve the songs well, and between that and the fact that I mainly was listening to like Nirvana and Everclear and Wheatus and stuff like that. Little Jimmy Eats World, little pop rock too, but I heard that and I was like, this is going to be terrible, man. And so we were all convinced that the show was getting flushed down a toilet. And we were all going to go down in flames, and it was a hopeless endeavor, and that the producers had gone insane. And the reason that it's my favorite episode is that like we were talking before, the theme of Buffy is don't give up. Mm-hmm. Even when it gets hard, even when it's challenging, even when you think you're going to lose, keep going. And the cast, at first, there's a lot of gnashing of teeth. There was a lot of complaining and trying to get out of it. But at some point we decided, hey, we're not going to get it out of this. Let's go down swinging. Let's try our best anyway. And so we lived up to the theme, if only for one episode. We spoiled Hollywood actors actually lived up to that theme. And then it didn't suck. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Fan favorite.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think it's a testament to what happens when you don't give up.
Yeah.
And yeah, they knew we were nervous about it. So the first scene that was filmed was the Xander Anya dance.
Okay.
That song. And they did a rough cut of that and showed it to us. And we quickly realized that it was actually going to work. And we started having fun on the set. And by the end of it, we're like, we're pretty good at this, man. We're rocking this stuff. And then the guy who played the villain of the episode, Sweet, he came to town. And that man's name is Hilton Battle. And he is a double Tony Award-winning Broadway actor. And he came out and he just laid everything, boom, smack, bang, smack, whack, in like 2 takes. And we're just like, oh God, that's how you're supposed to do it? Oh no, we're screwed. We're just playing around here, actually. Oh no. And so right at the end, we got taken back down to earth, which was good, get the humility back, get back to reality. Yeah.
No, but that season, because there was actually an artist on my show a few weeks ago, and Buffy came up because she was like a vampire fan, and she was talking about Buffy the Vampire was her favorite show, and she said that she was Team Angel. I said, I'm more Team Spike because I can relate to the tough guy thing. I'm not a simp. But she did say that, because it clicked with me. I said, you don't like Spike? And then she said, no, no. And it was because of seeing red. And it's just like, wow, when you really, because there's so much around that episode, it kind of just goes into the back of your mind. But when you think about it, it's like, that was bad. And then I heard that this was the darkest day of your professional career, and you eventually went to therapy because of it. And
Yeah.
it's definitely a tough scene.
Yeah, like I have a issue with my neck.
Oh, from stunts, I heard.
Yeah, whiplash
Hmm.
basically. Because when you sell a hit, you're always whipping your neck around, and you do that for enough years, either on stage or on TV, and you can have issues. And with me, I've got this whiplash. So if I get too tense, I kind of go like that. My tongue pulls back, and I was so tense. I We were blocking that scene, and I just opened the door and stood on my first mark, and I heard this like, and the whip. It was, I just fell to the ground, and I was just like, they had to call in the medic. Um, that was a horrible day. I was like curled up in the fetal position in between takes on the concrete, just wishing that I could die. I remember thinking, if I smash my head into the concrete with enough force, I could just fly through the concrete and fly away and get out of here. Um, the great thing is that I got a really good therapist after that, and that's one of the reasons that I'm smiling now. You know, it all worked out. But the thing is, in my defense of that scene, actually, one of the reasons that Buffy lands like it does is that the writers were being asked to come up with their worst day, the day that they don't talk about, the day that keeps them up at night, their dark secret, when they really hurt somebody or when they really got hurt, and then slap fangs and monsters and fantastical elements on that and create a story about that and tell the whole world about something that they don't tell anyone about. And so the writing is this sustained act of courage and vulnerability from some of the best writers in Hollywood. And to the point where we would go on the set and I would say, "Hey, great script, man." And the person would be like, "Thank you." Because they were worried that people might guess what they were actually talking about. Um, and so for that episode, the idea for that episode came from one of the women writers, actually, who had in college gotten broken up with her boyfriend broke up with her, and she convinced herself that if they made love one more time, everything would be fixed. So she went over to his apartment and threw herself on him physically, and he had to physically remove her and shove her out of his apartment. And that was a really bad day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was arguing to the producers, like, guys, you can't flip the sexes on that story. It becomes a very different thing when you
Mm-hmm.
flip it and have a man do that to a woman. And they said, no, James, Buffy is a superhero. She's got the physical ability to throw you through a wall, and she does in the scene, so we can flip it. And I said, guys, we're doing storytelling here. Okay, so this is a vicarious experience. So in storytelling, what we do as storytellers is we tempt the audience to climb behind the eyes of the lead. So everyone, hopefully, who's watching Buffy is Buffy. When I'm watching Buffy, I'm Buffy. And if we can do that trick, then we can give the audience this vicarious adventure, and you go through it with the lead. And so I said, like, so everybody who's watching Buffy is Buffy, and they're not superheroes, and I'm going to be doing this to them in their living rooms. This is not going to play like you think it's going to play. And they said, James, we don't know what else to do. We have been trying to convince the audience that Spike is not a good choice for Buffy. Buffy is a hero, and Spike is a murderer. And what we keep hearing, we keep having you do worse and worse things, and expecting that the audience is going to say, okay, that's too much. We don't want Spike with Buffy anymore. And we keep hearing the opposite. We want more of that stuff. We want more of Spike doing that stuff to Buffy. And we've come to the point where we need something this dramatic, to get that to happen, because also we need to motivate Spike to want to redeem himself. He's got to do something so horrible that he wakes up and says, I've got to get a soul. So for this whole thing to work, you have to do something truly, truly, truly horrible. And that was the thinking behind it. I don't think it takes away from the fact that everyone who watched that episode vicariously got attacked. Mm-hmm. And I to this day wish that they had been able to come up with a different horrible thing for Spike to do. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah. And then season 7, that's when you get back on the path to redemption. You go get the soul at the end of season 6 there. We saw that happen. But the couple scenes there was that when she was telling you, once you get back, I'm not ready for you to leave yet. And then the cross scene, I did mention that earlier, but the monologue when you say you're the one, Buffy, what was the note that she wrote you the next day once you wake up and the notes on the bed, because she left to go get the axe or whatever? So do you remember what was written on that note in that scene?
Man, no, I don't. Damn it. See, oh man, this is the thing. If you talk to a lot of actors about these kind of specifics and they say, oh, I don't remember, it sounds like we don't care, you know? The truth is, when you get really, really tired, your short-term memory evaporates. Mm-hmm. We used to play this game on the set. We'd be at lunch and we would say, quick, what did we film this morning? And the person would be like, I got nothing. Dude, I don't remember. I'm just trying to get my lines down for the afternoon. Like, just leave me alone with that, you know? And so it just goes. And when you're that focused on getting each shot one at a time, each scene one at a time, and just focusing on how do we achieve this thing, and you're that tired, short-term memory doesn't serve you. So there's a lot of stuff that I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Nothing for you.
Yeah, but with the show, you could tell. I mean, it's basically her that season fighting her feelings, and she can't fight those feelings that she has for Spike. That's pretty much what it comes down to.
Yeah, love is a hard thing to pick apart, man.
Yeah.
And I know that she was attracted to Spike. You know, he's hot. Yeah. I know that she knows that he's unhealthy for her. She's not stupid. She feels like she wants some excitement in life. Like she's at a point where she dies and goes to heaven because she's been such a good person. So she goes into this other reality that's wonderful, and then gets sucked back to Earth, which now, in contrast, feels like she's in hell. And suddenly she's got effectively a daughter to take care of. She's got this younger sister she's never had before. She's got to go work at a burger joint to just pay the bills, and her mother's dead. And you get in that situation, and you want a little something for yourself, you know, you want a little spice in life, a little excitement. And then you meet this horrible vampire who actually did it. So yeah, I don't know if I have a definitive answer as to why Buffy allowed Spike to pursue her, or why she gave in for as long as she did. But I got to say, when I look back at my romantic life, I can't explain all of that stuff either. You know, I can't pull all of that apart.
It's a mystery. But hey, you saved the world, and we heard her confession, but her last spoken word of the show was your name. It was Spike.
Yeah, well, because by that time he had gotten a soul. He had started his journey toward redemption. She could see that he was making real steps to try to become a better entity, better person, better vampire. And I'm sure that she hoped that he'd keep doing that. Yeah. Because he was hot.
Was it true that she had to keep things under wraps once you found out that you were getting back onto Angel for Angel's final season when you came back?
Yeah. I just got to say, when 500 people are trying to make you look cool and hot, you have no choice in the matter. So that was what was going on with Spike being hot. Yeah, that was an actual problem. Like I knew that I was going over to Angel before they killed me off on Buffy, but the world was not supposed to know. And unfortunately, Paramount, who was doing no, let's see, Warner Brothers, who was doing Angel, let the world know that Spike was coming on Angel before they had a chance to kill me off on Buffy, and that was a firestorm. That's like, how dare you? Like, we're trying to make people cry. You're not helping us. But but Warner Bros. Was like, fuck you, like, you left us, so we have no responsibility for you. Go have fun over on Paramount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be a Buffy reboot? I mean, there's been talks about it for years, but I just feel as though nothing's going to top the show that you guys did.
I hope there is a reboot. There was talk about a reboot. A woman who is a successful, I never met her, but she was a successful writer, producer of television, has done a lot of good work, said that Buffy was her Star Wars. It's the show that convinced her she wanted to pursue writing and directing and producing and stuff. And her idea was to make a new Slayer for a new generation with a new supporting cast, the same theme, and not try to retread Buffy at all. Not have all the old cast back. Maybe for one episode, Spike, you look like crap. Yeah, well, what are you gonna do? But I think that would be really cool. I hope, unfortunately, I think COVID sidelined that, and I haven't heard. That's what happens in Hollywood. Like, you get a group of people together and they start working on something, and then if that blows up, they all start working on other projects, and it's hard to bring something back together. But I hope at some point they take that theme and run with it again, because I think that there's still a lot of demons out there that need to be slayed.
Yeah. And there should have been a Spike TV show, just like they did with Angel. There should have been like a movie or a show. Because I did hear that you wrote your own TV thing. I heard about that and became a comic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my idea for a TV movie. They came to me and they want to know if I want to do a TV movie, and I said sure. What's the idea? And they had nothing. And I said, well, let me think about it and see what I can come up with. And I thought about it, and I thought, well, I used to go to the producers and say, how about a Spike TV show? And they'd always say, yeah, that's a great idea. A spinoff of Buffy with a male vampire lead. What would we call that? How about Angel? And so it was like, how do you tell a redemption arc of a male vampire and not retread Angel,
Mhm.
basically? And I thought, well, Angel is kind of a Angel is kind of like a DC hero. He's mythic, kind of like Batman combined with Superman. He's kind of removed from other people. He's always in this like mansion sipping port wine, thinking about his soul. He's got that lift to him. He's kind of like a Greek god, so to speak. And I said, okay, well, let's just go the opposite direction of that. So what if Spike's got a soul and he can't kill anybody for lunch, and he can't rob anybody for clothing? Uh, he's going to be homeless. He's going to be starving to death. His clothes are going to be falling off him. Uh, he's going to be in trouble because he's not going to get a job. No way. But he's going to have to pay attention to this conscience that he's got now. And can I write a story where he tries to be a hero, gets his ass handed to him, tries to be a lover, gets rejected, but figures out how to get a new pair of shoes without hurting anybody? And that small step toward redemption would be the story. And so I wrote an outline for that, and they loved it. They said, "Oh, this would be cheap to film," and I said, "Yeah, that's kind of what I was going for." But it didn't come together because of forces that were above. You have the storytellers, and then you have the people who are actually in power, and
Yeah.
the people. It didn't go forward. And so years later, Dark Horse asked me if I had any ideas, and I was like, well, I got one that never really came to fruition. I could write that out. And so that became a comic called Into the Light for Dark Horse. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've done a lot, and we got to get into this House on Haunted Hill, because what's crazy, in season 2, you shot in the original House on Haunted Hill with Vincent Price, because I know that's where the original was filmed. So you eventually got the opportunity in 1999 with the elevator scene and in the roller coaster, like the Hulk coaster down Universal.
I just wanted to work with Geoffrey Rush, man.
Yeah.
Geoffrey Rush, he had just gotten the Oscar for Shine, and he had like my favorite part of Shakespeare in Love is Geoffrey Rush. He's just amazing. And so I took a really small role so I could meet Jeffrey. And I also thought it'd be hilarious just to see, see blonde James Marsters freak out in the elevator falling, scream like a, scream like a girl. But yeah, I just remember we shot on the Hulk roller coaster in Orlando, Florida, and that had not been open to the public yet.
Wow.
And they like the in the script, you got this genius roller coaster designer designs a roller coaster that looks like it's falling apart, and that's how it's so scary. It's not actually falling apart; it's actually safe, but it seems like it. And so as actors, we're supposed to really be afraid that we're about to die for real. And the nice thing is that they hadn't opened the Hulk yet, so the people at the park were saying, we've tested it, it's safe, it's really okay. But in the back of our minds, we're like, it's not really tested yet. Like it's tested when you have 100,000 people go through that roller coaster and no one dies. That's when it's tested, and it had been tested like 30 times, and we just started writing it. Lisa Loeb, who was she played the reporter, and so we were together in the roller coaster car, and she just kept telling me that she was going to barf the next time. She kept constantly telling me, I'm going to hurl on you the next take. I'm sure I'm going to hurl on you now. I'm just like, one more, Lisa, you got one more, and you just don't hurl, because then we'll be here all day. Please, please, if you hurl one time, you're going to have to write it 5 more times, so please just keep swallowing it.
Oh man. So this was more than one take on that coaster. That's got to be
Oh, yeah.
crazy if you don't like roller coasters.
Oh, I love roller coasters. That was
Yeah.
fine, man. It was
Yeah.
awesome. Like there's one point on that ride where there's like this mist on the ground, and it slants, and it looks like you're going right into the ground. But of course, the mist is hiding a hole, and you go down into the ground and you come back up again. But emotionally, because you go around and turn, it's just like right there, you're headed into the ground, and every time you're just like, shit, my God. Yeah, but I thought it was awesome. Yeah.
And then we can't forget about Smallville, Brainiac. I heard that you're more of a Batman guy, I heard. And then you went on to do this Smallville, and it became a hit character for you.
Yeah. Al Gough, who created Smallville, he actually does another series now called Badlands, which is a great fight show, by the way. A lot of good stunts in that show. Yeah, he took me out to dinner in Santa Monica to talk to me about coming on Smallville. And I remember admitting to him, and I said, I got to be honest, I'm a Batman guy. And Al was like, why? And I said, well, because when Batman goes to work and he's trying to save people, you don't know if he's going to make it back home, because if you shoot him, he's dead. So it's exciting. He's risking his life to help people. It's very heroic. But Superman is going to be fine. He's invulnerable unless you pull out kryptonite so that he can risk his life. And every Superman movie, at that moment, at the very most exciting part of the movie, it's always kryptonite, and Superman's always fighting, gonna die. And I said, but Al, you can't do that on a TV show. You can't pull out kryptonite every single week. It's going to be repetitive. What are you going to do? I don't understand. He said, James, my Superman is a teenager. He's vulnerable to everything. And I realized what a genius that man was, because he wasn't talking about Superman's physical vulnerability. He was talking about Superman's emotional vulnerability. And I just thought, you fixed it. Like Superman is the hardest character to write for because of that problem, because he's invulnerable. Like Spider-Man always gets the suit's always torn up, man. At the most exciting part of the movie, it looks like he's just about to die, man. That kid is just, he's putting it all on the line, man. It's like Rocky. I'm gonna get back up even though I'm wounded. And they found a way to do that with Superman and go 10 years without becoming repetitive and cheesy. So I think actually Smallville is one of the most intelligent, probably the most intelligent versions of Superman that I've ever seen.
I remember family members coming over to my house and being like, "Oh, Spike from Buffy's in Smallville." I remember being a little kid and hearing that, and I remember then watching it and yeah, putting 2 and 2 together. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah.
crazy. And then you came back for Brainiac 5 after they killed you off. Are you, because I did hear that they want to bring this back. Tom Welling and the actors want to bring Smallville back. Would you be open to doing Brainiac 5?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I mean, I'm supposed to be a robot. I guess, I'm playing a robot who can morph. So for some reason I decided to morph into an old man. Okay, fine. You know, just explain that one. It's the problem is like when you play robots and vampires, how long can you go back and do that? Because they're not supposed to age.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's tough. It's tough. But how are you feeling now, just when we look at things, because you got Casa Grande? I know you were very proud of that. How was that
Yeah.
experience for you? Because that's something that you really took to home.
Yeah, man. That's not genre. I've done a lot of genre, but that one was an update of Upstairs Downstairs, which is a English show back in the 70s, I think, kind of like Downton Abbey, where there's rich people who live in this big semi castle, and then there's the servants, the working class people, and they're in the same place, and both sides are human beings, and neither side really understand each other, and there's just this cultural gulf. There's a wall between them, and they updated that into modern day America, into the Napa Valley, and so that the rich people are the wine growers and the ranchers of Napa Valley, and the servants are the Latinos that work the land. And both sides are human. They don't understand each other, and there's this wall right between them. And I thought that was a really useful thing to do for American culture right now. And it was low budget, um, but they had this incredible director. I think she was from Argentina. She was an award-winning director. It might have been a different country in South America, but she was just absolutely phenomenal. Like the best director, she had a very light hand. She almost never spoke. She cast it very carefully and then just let us do it. And that's the best directors are like that. The best directors spend a huge amount of time casting, and then when they get to filming, they're like, "Go! You're exactly the right person, and I want you to do what you feel like doing." And you get the best stuff doing that. So it was a really easy experience, and I'm just hoping that we get a second season because the first season, their cinematographer was just a genius. I mean, it looks like there was a lot more money involved in that production than they actually spent, and I respect that. Having done small, low budget theater and figuring out how to get a good pop without spending a lot of money, you can do it if you know what you're doing. Um, but you got to know what you're doing, and
Yeah.
I would love to work with them again. Yeah.
Yeah. And Abruptio, that was another one that with the recent horror picture with the puppets.
Yeah, man. Like I always wanted to do all genres, and like Buffy had horror elements, but it wasn't
Yeah,
true
yeah.
true horror. And I'm not a slasher film guy. I'm not.
Okay.
That's not my jam because I always say if I want to be horrified, I'll watch the news. And I do. I probably watch too much news. Um, but I thought I got this script and it was freaking disgusting, man. It was horrifying. But they said they were going to do it with puppets. And I love this movie by the South Park guys called Team America,
Mhm.
which because it's puppets, I don't know how to explain this, but there's a silliness to it. There's an artificial thing about it. Same thing with South Park. Just because they look like paper cutouts, there's something about the primitive nature of that is funny. Um, and I thought, well, if you do something, this is an interesting idea. So if you do this disgusting script, but with puppets like Team America, that would be really cool, you know? And so I went in and I asked them when I was recording, like, so what are the puppets going to look like? And they're like, oh, well, they're going to be full size puppets. We don't know how we're going to do it, but what we want to do is have life size puppets so that we can film both on sets and out in the real world. And I was just like, okay, I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm doing the job now. So I recorded it. and then they spent years figuring out how they were going to achieve it. And when I saw the movie, what they ended up doing mostly, like a lot of it, you can't tell exactly how they did it. It's kind of interesting, actually. They were really tight about how they achieved it, but a lot of it was actors in costume with a puppet head that was manipulated by puppeteers for expression and stuff.
Wow.
And the effect was exactly the opposite of what I thought it was going to be. It's not less unsettling than a normal horror slasher film. It's more unsettling than a normal slasher film. So I was just, when I saw it, I was like, oh my. So if you like horror, this is like double horror. This will really turn your stomach. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I get what you mean. You're more of, you like the original horror, you're more of kind of like a Psycho, something like an Alfred Hitchcock, something that's more of original and not too cheesy. Because I know a lot of these horror sequels can be cheesy.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I love Alien. That's
Okay,
one of
yeah,
my
Ridley
favorite
Scott.
films,
Mhm.
man. That's horror, but there's something underneath that, uh, which I think is all about sexual fear. In Alien, I don't know how much you want to get into it, but there's a lot like the computer that betrays them is mother.
Yeah,
Uh, the blood on the robots is white, which doesn't look like blood so much as something else. He tries to kill her by jamming a rolled up newspaper down her throat. There's a lot of stuff in there that really that they're they're horrifying us on a lot of different levels, so to speak. And I love thrillers. I don't mind being scared.
mhm.
Uh, Jacob's Ladder is another one of my
Okay.
favorite films, and that's horrifying about a guy who's just in hell and there's demons trying to rip him apart, and it's really scary.
People with no
And then
faces.
what's that?
People with no faces.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And and at the very end, it all flips and becomes beautiful,
Mm.
just amazing. Uh, um, but yeah, just straight up, bunch of young people getting killed off one by one by a horrible monster, and then we see his childhood. Oh, he had a horrible childhood, and we're done. Like there's something for that. I mean, like there's something to be said about horror, which is like it gives us a safe place to feel fear, and it can be cathartic in that way. There's a lot in life that is scary, and it can kind of be very healthy to get into a theater and kind of go through something scary, but be safe at the same time. So
Yeah.
I'm not against it at all. I just, as an audience member, don't get what I'm looking for out of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
How are the effects of the strike still? Because I heard that actors are still, they're still slowly getting back, but how things been on your end as far as since the strike has been back up?
It's not so much the strike that is. Look, man, you're talking to an actor, so I'm not a producer. So you may get a different answer out of a producer.
Yeah.
But in my mind, it's not so much the strike right now as it is just the streaming platforms are pulling back. They were making a lot of content for a long time, and now they're really pulling back and not producing so much. So we had this golden period of everyone's producing a lot, and there was a lot of work to be had, and now it's really constricting, to be honest. And a lot of shows are getting canceled when people are really surprised that a show that's popular and critically acclaimed gets canceled, and that's starting to happen. And it's just we're just we're in a whole new place, man. Like the streaming has changed everything, and it's continuing. The big streaming platforms are really trying to figure out how to make a business last a long time on that business model, and it's never been done before, and they're figuring it out. And I think that they decided that they were spending too much money, and couldn't get enough subscriptions to do that. That and the scary one is, of course, AI.
Yeah.
Uh, I was talking with a writer who was talking with a producer, and he was like, "I'm afraid that you guys are just going to be using AI to write the scripts." And the producer goes, "Oh, don't worry, you'd write comedy. A computer can't write comedy. Of course, procedural stuff, of course, that's all going to be computer. So cop shows, medical shows, all of that kind of stuff is going to be done by AI, and that doesn't directly affect actors yet. Um, but who knows? You know, like, did you see The Flash?
I did not see The Flash.
A lot of people didn't see that. You know why? Because it wasn't that good. And the thing
Mm.
is, there was a lot of scenes in there with a lot of computer generated acting. And I'm sorry, I think if you want an acting performance that computers find is really entertaining, you can get a computer to do that. But if you want a performance that human beings are going to connect to, you're going to have a human being do that. But I think that we're going to go through a period where they are very much tempted to have computers do more and more and more and more because creative people are frustrating.
Yeah.
We all have our ideas, and some of them are expensive, and we can be emotional. And I'm sure the people with the purse strings are sick of us. So yeah, they've been holding on to this for a long time. Yeah.
But how are you doing? Because just your mental journey with getting the therapist. How are you doing currently now, just within your career? Because I heard that a lot of external things, you need people, you need interactions. External things don't make you happy. So how are you doing on the mental side of things?
Yeah, I mean that's the nice thing about not dying is you get you. I've been around long enough to start to realize what does make me happy and what doesn't, and I found that anything that I can buy can give me pleasure. Anything that I can achieve can give me self-satisfaction, but that's different than happiness. And I think that happiness abides. It's long lasting, but like if I buy something and I get pleasure out of it, it doesn't last that long. Um, I could buy a toy and I could get about 6 hours of pleasure out of it, and then I put it in the closet. I could buy a car and I'll probably have 6 weeks of feeling pretty good about myself, and then it's just a way to get to the supermarket. If I buy a house, I probably get 6 months of really, hey, I'm in my new house, and then I'm just what's on television. You know, it doesn't really last. But connecting with people has given me what I call happiness. This it's not constant joy, but it's like I feel pretty good, man. I feel like I'm liking this. This is a good day, another good day. And the best days are when I find a way to help somebody, or when I allow them to help me. That's when a really good day happens. Uh, those aren't every day. A lot of my days I'm watching football and it's pleasurable, but the days that I can help a friend, that's the really good day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when we look at your journey, because it's really humbling from the beginning. We talked about it from the beginning, but I mean, when you had to make the sacrifices, only eating cream of wheat and oatmeal for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, then getting the health care and getting the dentist, is rich a mindset in Hollywood? Is it more of an illusion for actors in Hollywood?
Being rich.
Is it more of an illusion? Because people, when they think of actors, people in Hollywood, you think, oh, million
Oh,
mansions everywhere. You know what I'm saying? People on the outside think it's mansions and all this crazy stuff. But like you said, you're rich. It's only a certain mindset because you were like, okay, now I can take care of my son. Now I got health care. It's more of an illusion to what rich is.
yeah, yeah. Fame and money are two separate things. And people outside of the industry kind of think that they're the same thing. But the truth is, like, okay, if I get offered a role on a really big project with Academy Award winning people, and it's going to be a big hit, that's when they pay you in tortilla chips. You get nothing for that because they know that they're going to be giving you some fame and you're going to come. So they're smart. They're not stupid. So they're not going to pay money because they're going to get you anyway. You only make any money if you do the lower hanging fruit, you know? Um, and there are a lot of actors who are known actors who get stopped at the supermarket, and I enjoy your performance and everything, and they don't have much money. Um, it's an illusion. Um, uh, yeah, man, it's a whole, like we live in a consumerist society, uh, uh, where I'm watching a commercial that's lying to me, and the lie is that you're not getting it done, brother. You are failing in life. Here are the people that are succeeding, Look at their smiles. Look at their beautiful car. Look at how they're living. And you are a failure. But if you buy our toothpaste, you can get a little closer to where you should be, but you're not on your own steam. So you need our toothpaste to get there. And it's ridiculous. And I think at some point, the people selling products, this is back in the 30s, they realized that these commercials only sold that lie so well. They were making this fantastical world and trying to convince people that that was the real world that they should be living up to. And they decided to create stars in Hollywood and sell movies based on stars and get stars to sell products and sell this lie that there is a real place in the world where people have no problems and they live the perfect lifestyle, and it's called Hollywood. And if you buy our toothpaste, you can have a smile like that actor, whatever. And then you get to Hollywood and you figure out this, no, it's not that at all. Yeah. And then, I did get to a point where I could afford all the things that I wanted to do. I could take care of my dad who had Parkinson's. I helped him. I paid all his bills for 10 years, my whole family. But I got all the bells and whistles, and I quickly found out that didn't make me happy. All of the issues that I had were still there. And that was actually a horrifying realization to have professional success more than I ever dreamt, have more money than I ever thought I'd have, and then still have all of these problems inside my own soul, inside my own head. And that's why I'm glad to have gotten to therapy. It gave me some real tools.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so money and fame and money are different, and success and money and all that's very different than happiness for sure.
No, thank you for sharing that. And is California still the place? Because my generation, I have a problem with it because a lot of it, social media it's helpful, but it's an issue because a lot of people fake the fame, they buy their followers, they buy their likes, and all this stuff, and it could take away from people who have really been putting in the work. But because now it's almost like, well, it doesn't matter where the talent is because this one could be going viral in like Oklahoma or something. Is L.A., California still the place to where that's the hot spot? Like that time when you were in Chicago, it was booming out there. But is California still the hot spot for film and TV?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there are other hot spots now. Atlanta is really
Atlanta.
making a lot of good television. Vancouver is a really great place to go for film. For a long time, California didn't want to give tax breaks to the film industry, and they got outbid by other markets who really gave massive tax breaks, and they really lured a lot of production companies outside of Los Angeles. And I think California has now learned a lesson, and they're giving those tax breaks. I'm not saying whether that's fair or not, by the way, but that's what it's a competitive thing, and now they're giving those tax breaks, and that work is coming back to California because California, you can just, it has so many different environments. If you want to shoot mountains, you can get there pretty quickly. If you want to shoot desert, you can get there pretty quickly. You can get to any natural location that will look like anywhere on Earth in California. So, it's a lot of sunshine. So you don't get rained out too much. You don't get snowed out. It's hard to make a TV show in Chicago in the dead of winter. No one wants to shoot on location in Chicago and it's 40 below. Ridiculous. Yeah.
It is ridiculous. It really is. But James, anything else that you want to cover here today on the show? Anything else that we didn't discuss that you want to let the fans know? Anything else that we didn't touch on?
I'm doing a podcast called Schmachters
Oh,
with a
that's
guy
right.
named Mark.
Yeah. Mark
That's
Divine.
a lot of fun. Mark is the funniest guy I have ever met in my life. He's like Lenny Bruce. That guy will get me canceled. I swear to God, the stuff he comes up with can be so dark sometimes. So what I've realized is I never want to do a live interview with Mark Divine, man. I don't think, that wouldn't be good. But in a setting where I can edit out all the cancel stuff, he's absolutely hilarious. And so we do a podcast where we take questions. It's very simple. We just take questions from people who write in, and we're trying to answer the question: are actors intelligent at all, or are they just a bunch of spoiled idiots down in Hollywood? And I think we come to the conclusion that it's a bit of both.
Yeah. But I mean, you got some conventions coming up. I know you're big hit at the conventions.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I love conventions. I love at a convention, everyone's beautiful, everyone's safe, and you can be whatever you want to be.
Mm.
It's really I discovered that when I was a Star Trek fan in
Oh,
junior high and
Leonard
high school.
Nimoy. Heard about this.
Yeah, and I went to conventions as a fan, and all the chicks, all the women, they were probably not, they were below 18, but they all wanted to talk to me because I had a really good phaser, and I was like, I love this. No girl wants to talk to me in my junior high school. So when I was doing theater, you'd go to these theatrical conferences of other producers of theater, and you're always talking about building community. That's the whole reason. What we're doing at the end of the day is giving people an excuse to come into the same room and hang out with each other and interact with each other. And so that we have this thing called community. And, cities make parks so that you give people an excuse, come out and be together. And in this modern world, we're talking, we're using telecommunications right now, and getting people physically together in the same space is getting harder and harder to do.
It is.
And I find that I am involved by going to conventions. I'm creating community in a much more effective way than I did when I was producing theater.
Mm.
Conventions, tens of thousands of people come together, and they all start milling around and talking to each other. And I think it's really beautiful. And as we've moved more and more online, I think it's more and more kind of important to do that.
Yeah. Did you get to keep anything from Buffy as far as like the jacket? Were you able to keep any props?
I was offered the jacket, not by the people who own the jacket, but by the costume department. They said, if you want to walk off with this, we will not tell anybody. And I, I, I told them, like, one of my least favorite things when I was producing theater was actors that stole my stuff, man. Like, special place in hell for those bastards. I hate them. And so I said no. Yes, I
Oh,
also thought about it for a second, and I thought, what am I going to do with the jacket? Like, am I going to wear it around town? People be like, damn, that guy can't move on. Like, that's what a fool. Or am I going to, like, put it on late at night and see if I still got the Spike mojo? That's pathetic. Am I going to put it on a mannequin and let people touch it when they come visit my house? Like, Jesus, like, I'm the one person that I have no use for the jacket whatsoever. So no, I'm not going to take it. I didn't take it. And 3 days later, I read in an article that 20th Century Fox sold it to a collector for $250,000. And I was like, I'm a
oh, you should have took
dad.
it.
I'm a dad. That's college money, you idiot. Like, what? Oh my God, the pride that I had by passing up that opportunity. So no, I didn't take that. What I did take was one T-shirt that I auditioned in. It was a punk rock character, and so I was looking for the scroungiest stuff that I had, and I had a lot of scroungy clothes because I was poor. But the scroungiest piece was this black T-shirt that was so old. Like, I don't know if you have a T-shirt like this, but like, if you keep a T-shirt long enough, all the cotton leaves, and you're just left with the plastic weave, like the nylon weave underneath it, and
Mhm.
it's actually really cool. It's like really light, and it lays really cool. And I used to use this T-shirt as a rag around my apartment. Um, and I washed it and I wore it to the audition, and I got the role. And they asked me, they said, we've been looking for a T-shirt like that was that messed up, but we can't find one in all of Los Angeles. There's nothing that is that gross. Can we use it for the show? And I said, well, yeah, you can use it for the show. And this weird thing happened. Usually when you get a T-shirt for a character on television, you have to have at least two of those things. So if something spills on it or if it rips or anything, you can switch out to another piece and keep filming. So you have to double everything, but they could not double that T-shirt. So this weird thing happened where this rag became like the Shroud of Turin. like, you're wearing the t-shirt, James. Don't take the t-shirt off before you go to lunch. And, oh, be careful. You're in the t-shirt, James. Don't rip it. Oh, the t-shirt. So they had kept that. After a while, they stopped using that shirt and they just put me in like a smaller black t-shirt. But they had it on the rack, and I said, oh, I won't take the coat, but I will take that shirt back. If you don't mind. So I took my shirt back, and I recently gave it to Adam Savage because he has a collection of memorabilia, and I thought, well, I'm going to use it for a rag again, or I'm going to just give it to Adam. So he's got it now.
Yeah. What's the wildest piece of memorabilia that you got, whether at a fan at a convention? Has there been anything that's kind of surprised you and been like, wow?
Um, People give me pops.
Yeah.
Like I guess I only have 2 pops that are specifically for characters that I've done, or I guess there's 4 of them. There's one for Zamasu from Dragon Ball Super, and there's 2 versions of that, and then there's 2 versions of Spike. I've got one Brainiac, but it's the one from the comics, not
Not
Smallville.
the
They didn't
Smallville.
make one for that. Marvel's Runaways did pops, but they only did them for the kids because all the parents on that show are boring. It's boring pop. So I get some of those. They're doing another Spike, or I guess they're doing 2 more versions of Spike. So I'm looking forward to maybe someone will give me one of those when I go to a convention. I love getting artwork, frankly. I love it when people are making new art based on something that I've done. And because we artists, we inspire each other. We look at other people, what they're doing, and we take a piece of that and a piece of that, and we make our own thing. And so I really love that. I love it when it's child. Sometimes very young children will do a Spike. Those are beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely one of the greatest TV shows of all time. Though Spike, I think, is the greatest vampire of all time. I think so. When we look at the performances of that TV show that you did, definitely there's no other like it.
I think it's the best. I think he's the best written vampire of all
Yeah.
time. That's for sure. Someone asked me once if the vampires of Buffy and what was it, Twilight, got in a fight, who would win? I said, well, the Buffy vampires, we'd kill them because we'd demoralize them with superior dialogue before the fight, just depress them, cut them to ribbons, and then we just kill them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm not a Twilight fan, I'll tell you that. I did
Yeah.
Buffy, that's a top show, no doubt about it. And you did your thing. Out for a Walk pitch. Those are classic.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Classic. But James, is there
So,
anything else, man? I think we covered pretty much a lot about your life story and your film work.
yeah, man, I think we hit it. I think it's good. I'm gonna
Yeah.
go have some oatmeal.
Yeah. Cream of wheat.
Heck yeah.
Uh,
Heck yeah. I haven't eaten anything yet today. I do intermittent fasting, so I'm chomping at the bit.
yeah. No.
Oatmeal.
I
If you get
appreciate
hungry enough, oatmeal is really good.
which one? Apple cinnamon?
No, man. No, just straight up oatmeal.
Just regular
Just
one.
oatmeal. Boom. Yeah,
Yeah.
done. Done. Well, monk
Uh,
fruit in that. Love it.
yeah. But James, man, thank you for coming on the show. It was an honor to get to speak to you.
Oh man.
Yeah, it definitely
Absolute
was.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Absolute pleasure. Really good interviewer, man. I
Oh,
felt very
thank you, man. And shout out to Steve. Thank you to Steve too for getting us set up.
You got it. You got it. I'll
Yeah,
tell him,
yeah.
man.
Yeah,
I'll tell him.
anytime you're welcome. Anytime you have some upcoming film work, theater work, whatever it is, even an album. I do music on my show. We can get you back on for any new releases, performances. You always
Love
have an
it.
open seat. Yeah.
Love it. I love to talk about myself. So yeah, I'll come on back.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Thanks again. Shout out to Steve. And until the next time, I'm looking forward to everything that you got coming in the future. And congratulations on all your achievements.
Right on, man. I'm a very lucky man.
Yeah,
Very
absolutely. Hard work pays off, and it certainly has.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
You're-
Have a good
Yes.
one.
You too, James. Take care.